I won't hold my breath, and best of luck to them if one chooses to stand up. They are enjoying their lowest approval rating ever because this is who they are trying to represent. These far-left activists who don't stand for anything. They only stand against Donald Trump, and they hate, as you just heard from that one individual who wished death upon the president of the United States, they not just hate him, they hate the nearly 80 million Americans who elected to vote him.
Imagine daytime TV buzzing with the sound of coffee mugs clinking and the confident laughter echoing through the shiny studio of The View, where a panel of famous hosts throw out bold opinions, thinking it's all just harmless fun and entertainment. But out of nowhere, one woman, Karoline Leavitt, walks into a courtroom and completely flips their world upside down. She wasn't just defending herself. She came in strong with an $800 million lawsuit, directly targeting one of the most powerful talk shows on TV. This wasn't some silly internet fight or a quick tabloid rumor. It was a serious legal war, accusing The View of crossing the line from gossip to major defamation. And it wasn't just her saying it. The judge and jury agreed, ruling that the show's words weren't just harsh opinions but a full-blown attack on Karoline's reputation, all hidden behind flashy lights and practiced smiles. This case didn't just shake up daytime TV. It crushed the idea that shows like The View can say anything without consequences just because they're famous. Oh, and before we get into the crazy details, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss wild stories like this. Now get ready because what happens next is so wild even Joe Rogan couldn't stop laughing. He nearly dropped his elk jerky.
The episode of you when you were on The View, when you were running for president, you got introduced as our friend Donald Trump.
But does he really want to add President of the United States to his resume? A lot of people would like him to. Please let's find out, and please welcome my friend, Donald Trump.
That's right.
Whoopi Goldberg gives you a big hug and a kiss. Joy Behar gives you a big hug. Barbara Walters gives you a big hug. And then you actually started winning in the polls. And then the machine started working towards you.
That red hat that says "Make America Great Again," might as well just put a sticker on the hat.
Joe Rogan didn't just laugh when news broke that The View lost the case. He went all in with a verbal takedown, launching into a brutal rant like it was the final round of a UFC championship fight. This wasn't some light joke. It was a total knockout. He ripped into the hosts with sharp humor, completely destroyed their arguments, and mocked the entire show like it was a weak structure ready to collapse under pressure. Rogan didn't see The View as a serious political talk show. He called it group therapy that had completely gone off the rails, where outrage always wins and every host tries to outdramatize the others. He pointed out how their so-called discussions often sound like they're reading straight from Wikipedia without checking any facts since 2006. And the way he said it was both savage and absolutely hilarious.
Get it? I also hate Joy Behar. So I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird. So I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show. If the CIA is engineering, Antifa in the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of there are so many brilliant women out there. None of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View.
Rogan's takedown hit even harder because he wasn't just some random outsider. He'd been in The View's crosshairs before, mocked and dismissed as a conspiracy-loving podcaster with his elk meat and DMT stories. But while they laughed, he was quietly building one of the most powerful media empires in the world. And now, with the lawsuit dragging The View into the spotlight, the tables turned in a way no one expected. What made Rogan's criticism so brutal was how spot on it was. He didn't just make fun of them. He exposed the shaky foundation the show was built on. When a mainstream TV giant gets publicly wrecked by a podcaster for being completely out of touch, you know something is seriously broken in the system. And believe me, this was just the beginning of their complete downfall.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stopped looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, right. whatever it is. That used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right. And now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing. And I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side. We're on the right side. And if it's our side that's saying this, for sure it's the right thing to do. And no one's critically thinking about this.
What really shattered the illusion was how The View built its whole brand around constantly mocking conservatives, especially Donald Trump, and labeling anyone who disagreed with them as a threat to democracy. They pushed this narrative so hard that they literally compared Trump to history's worst figures, not as a joke but seriously and repeatedly. But here's the twist, half the country didn't buy into it, and they definitely didn't forget. Karoline Leavitt became one of their main targets. They twisted her image, stretched the truth until it broke, and painted her like some cartoon villain. But she didn't back down. She collected evidence, gathered the facts, and waited for the right moment to strike. And when she did, her legal move was so powerful it sent shockwaves through the entire media industry. Meanwhile, as the show kept calling Republicans conspiracy theorists, it turned out they were the ones sinking in a mess of terrible takes, failed predictions, and wild exaggerations that didn't just age badly. They spoiled like milk left out under a blazing sun.
This is the most important part. This was right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Every time The View launched into another dramatic monologue, it was like they were digging their own grave, with a diamond-studded shovel no less, and watching their reaction to the lawsuit felt like a slow-motion reality check. The smiles faded, the confidence cracked, and the once authoritative voices were suddenly scrambling to control the damage. But that was only the start of the chaos. The media meltdown erupted the moment the verdict hit the airwaves, sending shockwaves through culture itself. Coffee mugs across American living rooms practically shattered from the shock. The View didn't just lose a case. They got obliterated, not by some temporary social media outrage, but by an $800 million wrecking ball slamming into the sparkling world of daytime TV. This wasn't just defamation, it was defamation dressed up with studio applause, jazzy music, and blinking signs like a Vegas slot machine. Karoline Leavitt's legal team didn't just win. They completely destroyed the narrative. Every smug comment, every twisted take, every eye-roll-worthy opinion got ripped apart, fact-checked, and dismantled in court. It was like watching a magic trick slowly fall apart. Only the trick was ever believing The View had a grip on the truth. And the best part?
Is that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show.
The same hosts who used to hand out moral lectures like candy were now left shocked and speechless, completely unable to believe that someone had finally stood up to them. For years, they treated politics like a soap opera, where drama mattered more than facts and whoever shouted the loudest won the argument. But Karoline didn't raise her voice. She brought solid, undeniable evidence. As The View crumbled under the pressure of legal scrutiny, the internet went wild, turning the entire mess into a non-stop comedy roast. Memes flooded in within hours, and Twitter absolutely exploded like never before.
I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. You're asking me for what the president's justification is for these tariffs. It's not up to you. You're not the president, Gabe.
To hire a spokesperson just so that Elon Musk doesn't put out tweets that then confuse federal workers.
Are my press briefings not good enough for you, Jackie?
Clips of The View's most ridiculous moments started getting remixed with sad violin music and dramatic courtroom sound effects, turning what was once just a lawsuit into a full-blown cultural takedown, with The View as the main course on the chopping block. And here's where it gets really awkward. Remember how they treated Donald Trump before he ever ran for president? Believe it or not, they welcomed him with open arms. Whoopi Goldberg gave him hugs, Joy Behar smiled, and Barbara Walters even called him a friend. Back then, he was just our pal Donald. But the second he started rising in the polls, everything changed overnight. That red "Make America Great Again" hat instantly turned him into their #1 enemy on stage. It stopped being just political critique, it got deeply personal. They mocked his supporters, laughed at his policies, compared him to dictators, and accused him of every crime imaginable.
Get people thinking, like, if you could stop or by any means necessary, wouldn't you stop Hitler? And so they equate Donald Trump with Hitler and go, here you go, this is our modern Hitler. Do you see what Whoopi Goldberg said?
What'd she say?
Whoopi Goldberg said that Biden could arrest all the Republicans and put them in jail. You just need to see how unhinged this kind of thinking is. Well, you know what Joe Biden could do? Joe Biden, you have to see it because it's so
on TV.
crazy.
She said this
on television.
But here's what The View didn't see coming. Tens of millions of Americans had stopped listening, tired of being talked down to and treated like brainwashed fools. And when the show crossed that line, people noticed. Karoline Leavitt stood up for those silenced voices. She wasn't a media star or a household name, but she had something way more powerful, the truth and the guts to take them to court. The View thought they could twist her words, smear her image and quietly sweep it all away. But Karoline made sure they never got the chance to forget. Now every time someone watches that old clip of Whoopi hugging Trump, it hits in a whole new way. A clear reminder that behind all the outrage and dramatic monologues, these hosts were just playing a game. And Karoline? She's the one who flipped the board and changed the rules.
If you average out the View hosts, among the dumbest people on television. And so it's like they say the thing that people are thinking, but they say it very directly, so they expose whatever truth. But
I don't think some of them are dumb.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think Sunny Hostin's
You think it's deliberate?
I think she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on, for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say.
She didn't just flip the board, she shattered the entire game. And at this point, The View wasn't just losing a lawsuit, they were losing control of the whole narrative. What once looked like a polished, confident talk show now came across as a messy mix of bad takes and desperate performances. Joe Rogan didn't hold back either. He described the show as a rabies-infested henhouse where facts are treated like furniture in a cat's path, knocked over purely for the chaos, and honestly, it was hard to argue with that wild but accurate image. Day after day they claimed to offer political commentary, but let's be real. It felt more like emotional karaoke, loud off-key, and with no actual melody guiding the noise.
That's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
and at the same time, it seemed like the most interesting part was their audience seemed to be on my side.
Yes.
And that's their audience.
Yes. Well, their audience is not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows.
One host would launch into a rant, the others would nod in sync, and the audience would clap right on cue. And somehow that was passed off as political analysis. But under the harsh spotlight of a real courtroom, the whole act fell apart. No amount of drama could save them, applause couldn't shield them, and their smugness only made the crash even more brutal. Joe Rogan didn't just tear into their content, he attacked the very foundation, saying that if any show had harmed women's credibility in media, it was The View. Not because it was hosted by women, but because it showcased the absolute worst kind of political discourse. Shouting matches, one-sided takes, and cheap shots that felt more like a parody than real commentary, except they were dead serious. And with so many brilliant, well-informed women out there doing powerful work in politics and journalism, watching The View parade around as the face of female commentary was more cringeworthy than empowering. Joe said it straight. None of those women belonged on that set, and after everything that unfolded, it's hard to argue with him. But the real chaos began when The View's legal disaster exploded into a full-blown media circus. This wasn't just a stumble, it was a full-speed crash into a minefield. And they didn't just step on a landmine, they cartwheeled over it wearing fireworks for shoes. Karoline Leavitt, once underestimated and brushed off by the show's smug circle, had finally had enough, and she came back swinging.
You do know that you're walking into hostile territory, right?
Certainly do. And look, I think I'm well prepared for that. And I'm incredibly honored that President Trump has instilled confidence in me to speak on his behalf behind the White House podium. It's been an honor to have a front row seat to the greatest political comeback in history. And as you mentioned in your monologue, Sean, President Trump is putting together a brilliant cabinet of fantastic America First fighters, from Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are going to cut the waste out of our federal bureaucracy, to Susie Wiles, who is going to serve as the first female chief of staff in history. Take that, Mark Cuban, to Tom Homan. No one better to secure the border than him.
She wasn't just pushing back against a few twisted sound bites. Karoline Leavitt was going head-to-head with an entire system that thought it could say whatever it wanted without ever facing consequences. The segments about her didn't just bend the truth. They tortured it, dragging her name through the mud with exaggerated claims and lazy assumptions, all dressed up in fake laughter and forced applause. But once the courtroom lights came on, every lie and misleading statement got called out and dismantled piece by piece. The View's legal team was completely unprepared. It looked like they were trying to solve calculus with crayons, while Karoline's lawyers showed up with timelines, transcripts, ironclad evidence, and undeniable facts. It felt like The View just realized the cameras were still rolling and they weren't in control anymore. By the time the trial wrapped up, the same women who once mocked others for a living were now getting legally slow roasted. Their hot takes went cold, their confidence crumbled into pure confusion. Joe Rogan watched it all unfold, grinning like a guy watching karma pull off a flawless backflip. What began as a regular day of TV gossip turned into the legal equivalent of an airstrike, and The View never saw it coming. Then Joe came in again. Not just laughing this time, but dismantling the entire engine that made The View tick. He didn't bring conspiracy theories or long-winded rants. He came with surgical precision, like a stand-up comic trained in psychological warfare. He called the show what it really was, a therapy session dressed up in studio lights, where outrage was staged, dissent was silenced, and every opinion had to fit the script or be cut off mid-sentence. He pointed out their favorite trick, bringing in a token conservative just to talk over them or isolate them, reminding everyone how they treated Meghan McCain, and even further back a conservative survivor alum who had to shout just to be heard.